The Journey of an Ice Cube by me.
Suddenly, out of the freezer came one of the world's biggest mysteries of all time, the ice cube. One day, Ice Cube decided that he was going to move to India. His friend decided that it was not going to be a good idea because in India it was very, very hot. And he thought that he might melt. Ice Cube was happy with the decision and he went with it. Before Ice Cube went on his very, very amazing journey towards India, he turned on his TV and just decided to watch a little video. It was an instructional video on the phases of matter. What might this be, Ice Cube thought? This is what he watched. Welcome to learning about the phases of matter. This is all about learning about the phases of matter. So let's start with solids. What makes up a solid? Solids have definite shape and definite volume. What this means is that solids cannot change shape whether they're in a different container or not. They always have one shape. And what do we mean by definite volume? It means that solids do not change their volume based on what they're in or what they're not in. Over here, on the left, you have a drawing of what the particles look like inside of a solid. The intermolecular distance is very less inside of a solid than a liquid or a gas. What this means is that inside of a solid, you have very little space to move around if you're a particle inside of a solid. So instead, most of them are in their fixed shape and they just vibrate against each other, and that is what makes up a solid. Next, let's talk about liquids. What makes up a liquid? Liquids have definite volume, which means that the volume changes whether they're in a container or on the floor. They also have indefinite shape. What this means is that when you put liquid into a container of a different shape, the liquid will take shape of the container. Another thing that you should know about liquids is that the particles or molecules or the intermolecular distance is a little more far apart, so they have more room to move around. Instead of a solid, which is all cramped up, so then they just vibrate against each other. Next, let's talk about gases. What makes up gas? Gases have indefinite shape, which means that gases can be any shape or size that they would like. Gases also have indefinite volume. What does this mean? This means that the particles are a little bit more far away, so then the volume could increase or decrease based on how much the gas wants to take up. What this means is that gas can take up as much volume as needed. In the image on the top right, you could see that when you're looking at gas, you see that the particles are way more spread out and they have lots of room to just move around and just take up as much space as they would like. So the intermolecular distance is much, much less, so they have much more space to move around. Now, let's talk about how an object can go through the stages of matter. Let's take an ice cube, for example. When you melt an ice cube, or when an ice cube is in very, very hot heat, or when you add energy, which means that you add heat, it could melt and become a liquid. This phase change is called melting. Melting is when you go from solid to a liquid, which is when you add energy or add heat. Next, let's talk about the phase change of when we go from a liquid to a gas. This is called evaporation. When a liquid becomes a gas, for example, let's say if you're boiling water and you put the water into a pan and you boil it, then you take the pan off and then you see steam coming up and rising. That is gas. This is called evaporation. Next the next phase change that we're going to talk about is when you go from gas to liquid. This is called condensation. Say that you're taking a shower and the water just goes down and all of a sudden you see steam rising and you see little droplets of water on your shower. What this means is that when the steam is covered up by something, the little droplets of water come out onto the thing. Another example of that would be, once again, when you're boiling water and you put a lid on it and then you take the lid off. So when the gas is trapped and it is covered up by something, you will see little droplets of water. This is called condensation. Another phase change that we are going to talk about is freezing. This is when you go from a liquid to a solid. Say that we take some water or something else and we put it into a freezer, then it'll turn into a solid, which is also called an ice cube. The way that this works is that when you put a liquid into like some sort of container that has some sort of shape, it'll end up freezing and becoming solid. Wow, this stuff is very, very interesting, Ice Cube thought. Hope that this stuff doesn't apply to me. Little did he know that he was going to go upon stage 1, melting. So on Ice Cube went on his miraculous journey as he flew through the air, and as he crossed all the monuments, as he came across India. After Ice Cube's long day of touring India, he was feeling a little bit hot. And before he knew it, Ice Cube's body slowly but surely melted into a liquid. Ice Cube wasn't a solid anymore. He had reached the boiling point of a solid. He was now a liquid. Being a liquid in India wasn't easy. He knew that his next phase change was coming soon. Suddenly, while Ice Cube was touring the Qutub Minar once again in the hot sun, he started to experience some steam coming around him. Then, before he knew it, his entire body was just a big clump of steam. He was now at the gas phase. This is called evaporation. Being a gas in India was actually quite fun for Ice Cube. He now could move around very, very freely in the air, and now he can tour the whole country in a whole new way. Before Ice Cube knew it, he was having way too much fun. He was riding on elephants, touring Khan Market, Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar. Ice Cube finally decided that his Indian adventure was over, and he was going to head back to America. Then, as soon as Ice Cube made it into America, which he is now as a gas, it was very, very cold in America. It was December. It was Christmas time, and the trees were filled with snow. Then, all of a sudden, Ice Cube experienced some sensation. Slowly but surely, Ice Cube, now a gas, morphed into a liquid. This is called condensation. Slowly but surely, Ice Cube, now a liquid, finally made it back to his freezer. As he slowly went in, he felt right at home. Then, slowly but surely, Ice Cube reached the freezing point. Then, all of a sudden, he felt another sensation in his body. He was now turning into a solid. Every single part of his liquid body was freezing and stayed frozen. This is called freezing. Then, all of a sudden, Ice Cube found his friend in the freezer.
Oh my God, you're alive, he said. I knew you could make it.
I'm just happy you're okay, Ice Cube replied, as they both went back into the freezer and stayed there.